Before we get into the story of what makes these guys so unique, I want to share some opinions that others have.
Goshorn Brothers, I think they're an amazing, unrecognized talent. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of quality music, and I've just heard some amazing stuff that these guys have done.
It's my favorite band. I mean, it has been for a long time. Sometimes when they sing, and that's to me part of the fun to go and to watch. Yeah, they butt heads like brothers do, but man, when it's all over, they've just played their asses off, and you've done it. That's right. The cats can play.
Good guys, real nice guys. To this day, some of the nicest guys I know, and great players.
I think they're a treasure.
Tim and Larry, in the years when my kids were really, really small and I could not play on a regular basis, they inspired me so much. After I got to know them, they encouraged me and helped me. And Larry's been like, a big brother to me throughout the recording project.
Goshorn Brothers.
Larry, Timmy, the Goshorn Brothers.
The Goshorn Brothers.
We can keep it straight. Then the tides of time that come along and they slap you in your face. They let you know in a hurry you've got to keep the pace. Trouble and strife, everything's gonna be. I'm not sure which way we should go, east or west.
I want the world to know about these guys because I love them to death. And they are so gifted. So pay attention, because I'm going to take it all the way back to the earlier days of the Goshorn Brothers. The late 60s were a curious mixture of cultures at a time when the Vietnam War was at its height. America had been through nearly 20 years of the Cold War, and they were told by the government that what was happening in South Vietnam would happen elsewhere unless America used her military might to stop it. This was also at the same time when the hippie and beatnik movement was happening. A lot of people felt the need to come together with thoughts, ideas, and emotions. It was particularly in the music where the beauty of it all joined together were millions of people who needed to free themselves from the everyday repetition that seemed to be misdirected. Hippies looked closely at life and tried to enjoy the moment. Thousands of miles away from Vietnam was Cincinnati, Ohio, a city that had many recording artists. The city was also home to Danny, Larry, and Tim Goshorn, which would eventually inspire the world with their talents.
Oddly enough, my very first gig, I guess you'd call it, was that I got paid. I was 14 years old, and I played in a church variety show. I played guitar, don't remember what song I did or anything, because my knees were knocking and had no idea what it was like to be on stage. But after that, I decided maybe I'll do this, as a living. And through the years of 14 and 15 years old, just played like 4 to 8 hours every day, stuck in my room, And when I got into high school, I ran into a couple of other people that felt the same way about music, loved what was going on, and that was during the folk era.
First time I remember Larry Goshorn is, I believe it was in 1963, it could have been 62. There was a musical event put on every spring at Withrow High School called the Minstrels. And it was a big deal locally. We actually filled the house. I think we did, 4 or 5 nights, and then it was basically a variety show. And Larry was in a group called the Landsmen, which was pretty much a Kingston trio.
So my brother Dan and I put together a group called the Landsmen, and we had a trio that we played, two or three of us playing guitars and singing. And that was really our first venture into the whole thing. We had a little Philco radio in our bedroom, which we lived over in Kentucky, and at night we could only get 2 stations out of Memphis. I think one was out of Memphis and one was out of Nashville. And oddly enough, this little Philco picked both of them up. But Memphis was blues and country blues, and Nashville, of course, was full-on country. So those were the major influences, and folk music kind of fit into that whole thing.
We became guitar buddies. We used to get together after school and play guitars and teach each other what we had learned. We were basically folk musicians. We played a lot of Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Later on, I became interested in Leadbelly and the old blues guys from the Southern blues, and we were having a great time with that. So the music began to change. The folk music thing kind of went away. I mean, that was everybody with matching shirts and the white pants, and doing very wholesome music, which was a good thing. But like all the musical trends, they kind of faded away, and we started doing more of a blues-oriented thing. And around that time, of course, the Beatles came along, which totally changed the world, if not the world of music. It changed the entire world. So that gave us a whole different direction to go. And every type of music that you play or you learn about leads to a different type of music. And in my case, every time I would discover a new kind of music, I would go back and find out where that came from. So, and I would incorporate that into whatever I was doing. And we put together the Sacred Mushroom, and then we decided to get a house together, and so we did the whole thing. We lived together. We were sort of the Cincinnati Grateful Dead, because we had no, we had no commercial aspirations. We were just interested in putting out as much music as we could, as often as possible.
Sacred Mushroom was not a blues band, but a lot of those bands in that period had a blues background and like a blues drive to them, like a lot of the English bands, the Cream and all those things. They weren't blues bands, but they could play blues, and they had like a blues feeling to them. And I think Sacred Mushroom was the same thing. And we tinged that with a little bit of psychedelic here and there, and it was something that I really like to listen to.
Psychedelic rock bridged the transition from early blues, folk music-based rock to progressive rock and hard rock, and as a result influenced the development of subgenres such as heavy metal. The Sacred Mushroom consisted of Fred Fogwell on rhythm guitar, Danny Goshorn on vocals, Joe Stewart on bass, Doug Hamilton on drums, and Larry Goshorn on lead guitar and vocals. Larry was one of the band leaders and is known as the grandfather of psychedelic rock in Cincinnati.
Larry was the godfather of the alternative music scene in this town. There's no question about it. There was nobody in this town who was doing what Larry was doing until after Larry was doing it. And he led the way, and the rest of us, were coming along after him. He was getting into the West Coast thing heavy. A lot of the psychedelic, a lot of jamming, long 20-minute songs, all that kind of stuff.
Brother Larry Goshorn, he's indescribable as far as his playing. He's soulful, bluesy, just a real natural player. And we've been playing together a long time. It's been a pleasure.
He's a great guy, nice guy, just always positive.
Older brother in the Sacred Mushroom, Danny, and he and I were 11 months apart, and we had a pretty stormy relationship. But at the time he was trying to do the Sacred Mushroom, he was also a Marine reservist. And so weekends were when they would drag him away, and that was back when they had the draft and all that and the Vietnam War. So it was serious business, and he didn't get to hang around with it much, so he didn't actually stay in the group after about a year and a half.
He had to maintain a a burr haircut. He was in the reserves, and the rest of us were all long hairs.
Well, Danny Goshorn, actually, people think that Larry was the one that kind of helped me play guitar, but Danny was the one that actually showed me my first chords. Danny's a great guy. He and I worked a lot together in the carpentry business.
Be sure to tune in next week as we reveal the story of Mr. Chris Walker, one of Cincinnati's finest bass players ever to live. We'll also feature Mr. Gradual Taylor, another Cincinnati icon. Next week we'll continue the story on the Goshorn Brothers and how their careers took off when they joined the band Pure Prey League that had to hit Amy. If you support what I do, please let your friends know. That would be a huge help. And if you'd like to sponsor an episode in the future, I'll definitely make it worthwhile for your business or your organization. Just email me by going to chucklandshow.com.